Hey everyone, my name is Andrew Davidson. You're watching Conversations in Pop Culture, and yes, I am hard to kill. And I do want to remind everybody that this episode is brought to you by my friends over at PocketJackComics.com. So go check out what they do. They do some awesome comic work. But enough about that, because I have with me a legend, a comic creator, and the CEO of Glass House Graphics, Dave Campiti. I think I got your last name right, hopefully. If I didn't,
Close enough. If we were in Italy, it would be Campiti, and you have to say it with the hand. And in the U.S., it's Campetti like spaghetti. So either one works.
well, I stand corrected and you learn something every day. But obviously, I mean, you've been doing comic stuff for the last 40 plus years.
Yeah, I'm
Back in
old.
the day. Hey, look, you look young to me. You look young to me. So, but obviously, there's a lot of stuff I want to talk about. You got a lot of books that you've done and a lot of other stuff. And obviously, I do want to talk about Glass House Graphics and everything that you've done with them. And because you're the CEO and it's kind of your baby in certain aspects. But I do want to quickly allow you to introduce who you are because, as I stated, I kind of tip my hat. You've been doing this for over 40 years in every aspect.
Sure, sure. I came into the business in 1982. I wanted to grow up working for Stan Lee, writing comic books, working in animation in some way, shape, or form, and doing cartoon voices. Oh boy! I wanted that opportunity. Gosh, sounds pretty good to me, Mickey. Um, those were kind of my life's goals, and I managed everything. So what do I do? But I don't want to retire yet. But it's been a good life, a nice career, and I've gone from freelance writing and uh, uh, packaging books to representing many hundreds of artists all over the world. Brought probably more people into the comic business internationally than any other single person. Um, and so here I am after decades of running Glass House, still repping artists, still packaging books, and we expanded into animation as I'd hoped. So um, it's been a long haul, but we've done a lot.
Yeah, let's talk about that a little bit because obviously, I mean, you did some stuff for DC, you've done stuff for Malibu, you've done stuff for Wonder Comics, Amazing Comics, Innovative Corpse or Innovative Press, however you want to call that, and then you formed Glass House in 1993, and you've been writing it.
Somebody's done their research.
I do my homework, and then in 1993, you kind of formed that whole company,
Hmm.
and like how did that even form? Because that's what I think is so interesting because it's still around. That's what
Yeah.
makes it really interesting. Is that
Well, I tell you what. Let's back into that. Let's bring up some of the graphics. We'll talk about it that way and get into innovation.
which
Um,
which graphic? One, two, or three?
so the thing that starts with the slides. The first one.
This one right here.
Yeah, there you go. So that was my first comic book published story in Vanguard Illustrated #1. Al Williamson met him in the bar of a convention in Boston. We got to talking, and he said, what do you want to do? And I told him I wanted to be a writer in comics. Well, got any ideas I could draw? And I told him a couple, and he said, I like those. Send them to David Scroggie at Pacific. I'll tell him you're coming. And they bought a few of them. He ended up not drawing any of them, but his assistant at the time, Tom Yates, drew two of the three, and it was kind of on from there. So Vanguard Illustrated 1 was my first one. I did the story with my ex-wife, Cynthia Wood, called Legends of the Stargrazers. Um, for the second one, and Dave Stevens was kind enough to do the cover for that. And then Williamson got around to doing the cover for my third one. And so I was off and running from there, went from writing comics to realizing that editors at these companies that weren't Marvel and DC were more likely to buy work if it had the artist attached, or the artist, the letterer, the colorist, the whole shooting match. So I started packaging whole books like the Greylord series, or Hero Alliance, uh, that lived on for a long while, or packaging X Mutants and its spin-offs. And I did that between 1984 and 87, when after getting badly burned by some of these publishers, I realized, I know enough that I could probably run a publishing company myself. And so wrote the business plan, launched innovation in 1988. And, I went from doing comics to becoming a business person. Hadn't expected to do that, but that should have been part of the plan. Uh, but I went to the library and learned how to write a business plan, and raised several $100,000 and got innovation started. And we did a mixture of licenses, like Anne Rice's Vampire Lestat, Interview with the Vampire, Queen of the Damned, Master of Rambling Gate, um, Quantum Leap, of course, Lost in Space, which might have been our biggest success. So we did adaptations of novels. We did a book called Masks, which was short stories with people like Stephen King in them. Uh, and We did a bunch of creator-owned stuff, like Mike Barr's The Maze Agency. And so it was a nice 5 years running that. And then things started getting weird. I got the company from nowhere, nowhere, it didn't exist, up to fourth place in market share. There was Marvel, DC, Dark Horse, then Innovation. That's not a bad place to be when you launched your first books in early '89, and by middle of '91, you're in fourth place. And I was doing it on budgets of about half of what Marvel, DC, and Dark Horse were paying. So it was running it on a shoestring pretty much, but it was doing well. And then the investors started getting weird. Well, it's a success. Should we sell it? Should we bring somebody else in to make it a bigger success? It's like they kept their hands off it until they saw it was making money. And they brought in Jim Shooter to see if he would run innovation. They shopped it around to a number of people. Marvel came knocking, saying, "Hey, we're interested in buying innovation," and that went nowhere. Um, so it was an interesting time. But by the time 1993 rolled around, and I had brought in all these artists, including Mike Diodato and Luke Ross and Octavio Cariello and so many others, Joe Bennett.
Right? Joe
Yeah,
Bennett brought
yeah,
in.
yeah, all from Brazil. Um, I could see the writing on the wall. It's like they were going to torpedo this company in some way, shape, or form. I later found out that one of the investors was the only, how was it explained to me? Um, uh, Basically, he was the only one who had a vested interest in the company. So he would get any assets before anybody else. So he had, through the investment company, Century Equities, that had set up the deal to fund innovation, he had other businesses that were making more money, and they needed a tax write-off. So they started dismantling innovation, not letting us do any advertising, just all sorts of weird things. And it's like, okay, this is going nowhere fast. Um, I decided to give it one last shot. I went in with 10 non-negotiable demands. Fix this stuff and I'll stay aboard, or I leave. One of the demands was that Hero Alliance that we had for a while, put on hold, put back on the schedule as this big project, 4 interrelated titles. We're hiring a lot of people, and they canceled it again before any significant work got done beyond writing. And I said, look, we can make it look like this. This is what Mike Diodato would do with Hero Alliance. It would have looked fantastic. They said, nope, not interested. So after the meeting, I went back to the office. I typed up my resignation, my 2 week notice, and took this stuff to other publishers. And before you know it, I had resigned March 11th, 1993. By 2 days later, we had the first project, which was the Green Hornet for Joe Bennett. Joe Bennett was the first artist out of Brazil that Glasshouse hired, and or through I'm sorry, that Innovation hired, and then through Glasshouse, he was the first Brazilian artist that anybody else hired through our group. So Joe Bennett did the interiors, and American artist Mike Okamoto did the cover of this, and that was the first Innovation project. And here we are, 30 coming up on 33 years later.
So obviously to go into this a little bit more, because you then formed Glass House
Yeah.
Graphics, and now you're doing projects. And I don't know if it was initially just doing projects and doing comic books and doing creator own stuff, but obviously it evolved into now what I deem as a full service production company to some degree, meaning that
Oh yeah.
it needs a comic book team. I think they can get it from Glass House, or if a company comes to you, or if a TV adaptation or anime or whatever else is needed in art for that part. I mean, I don't know how it evolved into that, because you're like, I don't know, you know Dennis Kitchen. Dennis
Yes,
Kitchen.
of course.
I mean, he has kitchen sink, and like his logo was an octopus, because he was having like those 8 things and like 8 different things. And so like, that's kind of what I view Glasshouse as in many ways.
Yeah.
You're
Well,
all.
yeah. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh no, I was done. I was done. You can cut me
All
off
right.
anytime.
Yeah, yeah. So what ended up happening was, remember, I got into this starting as a writer and then packaging books. So I knew how to do all this, and then became a publisher. So I had been on both sides of the desk. So I understood budgets and scheduling and of course all the creative stuff. So when we started representing artists, sure, we could do as much or as little as somebody needed. Somebody just need a cover artist, great. Somebody just need a logo, fine. Need interior, artwork and inks, do that. Need just inks, we'll do that. So it was as much or as little as any client needed. And some, it was just easier for them, or made more sense to use us as a one-stop shop. So we could provide a writer, an artist, an inker, a letterer, a colorist, do the logo. We could do the book design, the pre-press, package the whole thing. And so smaller publishers would do that. Larger publishers could still get us to do as much of that as they wanted. So Marvel and DC and continuity and some of these others, we were drawing, we were lettering, we were coloring, just whatever the editor needed at the time. And in some cases, we had some creator-owned stuff that either I wanted to do or some of my artists wanted to do. We would shop that around. More recently, we'll do that stuff through Kickstarter and then go from there. Probably a good example would be this. These are 2 books that I wrote over the past few years for Simon and Schuster, big book publisher.
Yeah, I want to talk about this. I want to talk about this, but continue.
Okay, yeah. So when you talk to comic fans, who's the biggest comics publisher out there? It'll be Marvel, DC, and some more in the know might say Archie, because Archie has a huge distribution through newsstands with the digests and all that. Um, but they don't realize that the book publishers, most of who don't even end up in the comic shops, are producing more than a lot of the big publishers. For example, last year for Simon and Schuster, we did over 8,000 pages of comics. That probably stands up pretty well to a lot of the publishers out there, but we're not even the only supplier to Simon and Schuster. So it becomes a very real thing. Um, Mess up my desk here a little.
This is I want to talk about this because I was speaking to Paul Levitz, and one of
Yeah,
the things he was saying is that people are now coming up to people at conventions, and they're not handing them a floppy; they're handing them a graphic novel, and they're
sure.
handing them, and people are like, "This is my first comic." And
Uh-huh.
it's a very weird thing where I like floppies, but I also read a lot of things digitally now. I'm going to say
Sure.
a word, but I love Comixology because Comixology, I get a lot of comics at a very affordable rate on a digital level, and I could experiment on what I want to read. And I don't
Sure.
feel guilty in which that I read a really weird, fun book, like 2 weeks ago called Dealing with the Black Dahlia and that, interesting crime in California.
Hmm.
But I can't find that in my Barnes and Noble in my comic shop. It's hard to find on Amazon sometimes, and it's an expensive book. But legitimately, I wouldn't say it was free, but it was a digital, thing on my iPad.
Yeah.
That's what I think is so interesting because I don't think that was published in floppies. And so that's why I find this so interesting is that both these books that you've done is that it's a whole different ball game because it's not aimed at me being a 32-year-old man reading my floppies.
No,
Like
no.
so that's what it blows my mind because it's comics, but it's not comics, but it is. I don't know how to explain it any other way.
Well, think of it this way: the formats have changed somewhat. I mean, so you've got books like Goddess Girls and Heroes in Training that are the smallest size. They're intended for the younger audience that obviously can't get to comic shops themselves. They're too young to drive. But these are available on Amazon. They are in all the bookstores and so forth. And it honestly it doesn't end there. There are there are comics and graphic novels that are produced entirely for the educational market. Now, this is a publisher called Abdo. Every year, we'll do 6 hardcover graphic novels on a different subject. They hired me to write the one on Greek mythology. So I did 6 books. Journey of Jason, Agony of Atlas, Price of Pandora. There's my Stanley alliteration there. Pride of Perseus, Acclaim of Achilles, and my favorite one, Might of the Minotaur. Um, so, they hire us to do the whole thing. They gave us like a paragraph of what they wanted, and I said, "Oh, I can do that," and ended up writing it, and we did the 6 books, and we've been doing that for years for them. So, educational comics never hits the bookstores. Maybe you can get it on Amazon. I don't know, but there it is for the educational market, just like all this other stuff through Simon and Schuster and so forth. And we've done graphic novels for a bunch of the big company. Scholastic publishes an awful lot of graphic novels. We've done work for several of the other publishers over the years that have done graphic novels. So there's a bunch of stuff that doesn't necessarily get into the comic shops, but it's all legitimate. And you know, uh, $5 grand for some artwork from Scholastic spends exactly as well as $5 grand from Marvel or DC. So artists are happy because I'm getting them stuff in a very expanded market that they wouldn't have known existed.
So let's actually talk about this because this is also interesting on a business level.
Yeah.
Because I think, and maybe I'm not a comic person. I have no desire to write a comic. I have no desire to enter that space at the moment. I like buying books. I like selling books. I like selling cards. I'm more on that side of the
Hmm.
business, on it, flipping, appreciation, collecting, all that stuff. But what is that like? Because I think that people sometimes are narrowly minded, thinking that the only avenue is to go and be on Kickstarter or be in Diamond. And I mean, you just kind of alluded to the whole thing where there's a whole other market out there. And there's also direct to consumer, but there's also companies and you could adapt stuff. I mean, I'm trying to think of a Firefly is a good example where you could have that just in straight graphic novel format. You don't necessarily need to do floppies for it. And I mean, because I think that that's what is being missed sometimes with all this comic stuff is that because if you do a graphic novel for Scholastic, just because it's not in a floppy doesn't mean it's not a comic.
Yeah. The comic book is sequential art. The only reason it got called a graphic novel in recent decades was, Will Eisner and others were pushing for a more highfalutin name. And somebody asked me the other day, "What's the difference between a comic and a graphic novel?" It has a spine. It's square bound. It's a thicker book, and uh, the difference is the bookstores will carry it, or it won't be considered a periodical, so it'll sit on the shelf longer.
Fair enough, fair enough. And then to go further into this whole thing with the graphic novels and Scholastic and all that stuff, and even Simon and Schuster, do you also feel that there is less of a stigma when you're putting out a book that does have a spine and it's published by Simon and Schuster? Because I don't want to say it, and this is going to sound, and it's going to come out wrong, but I'm going to say it anyway, is that for a while, it's almost been like a boys' club comics in a lot of ways. And I feel like it's definitely been more masculine throughout the history of comics. And maybe I'm wrong on that, and I'll put my foot in my mouth if I am. But obviously now I think more women are reading comics now more. And I think it's becoming more and more equal. But I also feel that if you put out a graphic novel through Simon and Schuster, some of that stigmatism goes away. And people
I,
also have said, "Oh, comics," because I remember reading comics, and I'm in a doctor's office, and the doctor's like, "What are you reading that garbage for?" You know what I mean? So I feel like if you're reading a spine book, there's a little less of that too.
yeah, I remember the stigma as much as anybody. Um, my dad saying, "What are you reading funny books for?" Because I enjoy them and I'm buying them with my own money I made from mowing lawns and delivering newspapers. So uh, when I told him, "Oh, when I grow up, I want to, do this and this and this and write comics," and well, why don't you get a real job? And the decades have proven that any of the jobs he wanted me to get, I wouldn't have made as much money and wouldn't have enjoyed. So the stigma has always been there, I guess. Um, but the stigma came from the uninformed, the people who didn't bother to see what it was. So to folks like that, it's not going to matter what publisher's name is on the book or how fat the book is, whether it's a 32-page pamphlet or a 400-page omnibus. They're still going to see it as a comic book and it's for kids. It could be Mouse and have won awards, and it's still a comic book for kids in their minds. But my thinking along those lines is it doesn't matter. If that person's not buying the book for you or otherwise paying your bills, why does their opinion matter? If you wouldn't go to them for advice, why would you go to them for criticism?
That is true. That is true. I'm very open about this. The people's opinions that I care about is I care about my family's opinion on certain things. I care about my girlfriend's opinion. on certain things. If I have children at some point, and I'm hoping that I do, I'm going to care about what my children think in certain circumstances, and maybe some close friends. But if somebody doesn't like the way I do something, or doesn't like the way I do something in my business, I'm like, well, if you think you can do it better, go right ahead.
Yeah.
Do it your way, and you tell me then how it works out for you. And is maybe you're right. Maybe
Yeah.
you have a better way, and maybe I should learn from what your solution is.
Oh,
But like that's how I view
yeah.
criticism. It's
Well, that always needs to be the way. When I was running innovation, and we announced Anne Rice's Vampire Lestat, and I said, "All right, I'm inspired by DC's Black Orchid, which was a 48 page, Dark Knight format, fully painted, absolutely gorgeous." And I said, "I want to do Vampire Lestat like that, but it's not going to have a spine. It's going to be 32 pages, no ads, cardstock cover. It's going to take 400 pages and 2 years to do the adaptation." I was at a convention and talking with a couple of Marvel editors who were laughing at me. They were saying a 400-page adaptation of a 400-page book that women and gays buy, and you're going to do it in the comic market? That's not going to work. Man, we sold a lot of comic books to an audience that didn't exist. And yeah, we sold them. A lot of the audience was female. A lot of the audience was gay, and their 250 cover price went as well as everybody else's 250 cover price that bought
So
it.
let me ask this, because I'm always curious, and maybe because I'm a little petty, and I have no problem admitting that. Is that when somebody says, "Oh, you're wrong," and then it turns out I'm really right, and I'm right beyond anything else. And there's been a few examples of that people know. I called Netflix very early on. I called WWE very early on as a stock picker, and boy, do I like to gloat. So I don't know how you feel about that, but like when you're really right and you come up with this and you do it, and then you're selling a lot of comics to this, you're selling it to an audience that shouldn't have existed but did exist and bought it up like crazy and enjoyed it. Like there's a point where you got to take a victory lap, right? And you got to feel
Well,
pretty
well,
good.
my victory lap was adding Interview with the Vampire, Queen of the Damned, Master of Rampling Gate, then expanding into Terry Pratchett's The Color of Magic and the Light Fantastic, and Piers Anthony's On a Pale Horse, and I just kept going. To the point where the guy, as I said, it was Marvel's editors, where Marvel eventually came calling, "We're interested in buying innovation because we're great with superheroes, and yeah, we do some licenses there, but they all have the superhero mentality. You do something we can't do, and we want to get into that market." And ultimately, no deal happened because a different group of people came in to make the final decision. They said, "Oh, it's just licenses. We can do that." And so that deal never happened. But that was kind of showing me how right I was, not just from the sales, but when Marvel actually wanted to buy the company.
Again, I think you're more humble than I would be. So I have no problem admitting that I'm a little petty, and that I enjoy it, and that, but nonetheless, in which that I make sure when I have a victory, I let everybody know that I won. That's just how I do things. But I enjoy the sport of it more than anything else.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, but obviously, I do want to get back to the Simon Schuster stuff, because I think
Oh,
that's
yes.
really cool. Because the other thing too that's nice about it, and not to go into the specifics, but when you're running a company and you have something that's been going on, I think it's been going on for at least 15 years, if my research is correct. The Goddess Girls, from my understanding, I think, right, 2010. Did you start
Uh,
with it?
no, Goddess Girls came out as a series of novels around then, and they wanted to
Yeah.
expand the brand. And uh, basically, what happened was this. I got a call out of the blue from the art director of one of Simon and Schuster's divisions, and he said, "I have a problem that I can't solve. I talked to the art director over at DreamWorks Publishing, and he recommended I talk to you." And okay, what's the problem? Well, most people, if they're going to do a graphic novel, they hire an artist. If it's a 200-page graphic novel, that's basically a year for that artist. Maybe 6 months if you have the artist and a separate inker. But we want something where we can do like 6 books in a year of one title, all the same style. So we want to do Super Turbo. We want to do Spirited. We want to do Guardians of Horsa. We want to do Goddess Girls, Heroes in Training. He just rattled off a ton of these things. And he said the books are anywhere from 144 to 200 pages a piece. And we need to do 6 books in a year. And I'm told it's impossible. I said, it's possible. When you want us to start? And he said, seriously? And I said, sure. So they gave us a couple of them to start with. And within a couple of weeks, they saw a huge amount of material that we delivered, all approved. And it was like, oh, this does work. I said, yeah, I know how to handle this. I've been doing this for a long time. You set it up like an animated project, or like they did in Comicdom's golden age, where you had a team of artists working on it. So we'll have a master artist that will design the characters, ink the main figures, or at least the heads, and then we'll have a layout artist, a couple of pencilers and inkers, a background guy, a couple of colorists, so we can
Very,
make
very
a
much
team work.
the manga way to do things.
Yeah. And so we ended up doing, it's a little less at this moment, but for about 5 years here, we've been doing about 8 different projects at once, and usually 6 books a year of each project. And so, and with the page counts varying, as I say, last year it turned out to be about 8,000 pages.
So the reason why I bring this up and I want to talk about this is that that's what is also interesting too, from just a business standpoint, having work. Because I'm going to let everybody know a little secret. You have to have work to keep the lights on, to pay people, to be a profitable business. I mean, I don't think I'm breaking any secret here, but if you don't, and having, I don't know, and I don't want to get in, I'm not going to ask you about the contract specifically, but it's a good contract to have to a degree. I mean, the fact that you have work and they want you and they trust you and that you're producing that much caliber of page count, it's a big deal to have that, because it keeps Glasshouse functioning and keeps your artists busy. And if they have work, they're going to stay wanting to work with you because they have work. I mean, like, I don't know how to explain that any other way. It's just common sense.
Yeah,
and that's,
of course. So it's always fascinating the way it seems like the jobs I chase after don't happen as often these days as the people that chase after me, wanting us to work on something. You remember earlier I was showing you Quantum Leap as one of the comics that we did in the early 90s at Innovation. So I get a call one day. Hi, this is Deborah Pratt, co-creator of Quantum Leap. And I said, I remember from when we did the Quantum Leap comic book. And she said, oh my gosh, I was in my storage facility yesterday, and I came across the Quantum Leap comic books that you did. Oh, they were so good. I hadn't looked at those in decades. I would like to do a project with you. And I said, is it Quantum Leap? Because I had, uh, you know, Quantum Leap fans hated the ending for Quantum Leap, the way the show ended, and I wrote an ending that Universal approved that we were gonna publish as the last Quantum Leap story. And then I left Innovation and ended up not happening. But I talked to her about that, and she said, "Oh, I would love to do that, uh, but I don't think they're licensing out Quantum Leap. Even I can't get it." So she said, "What I want to do is I wrote a pilot for a project called Warrior One. That's based on a series of novels that I have up on Amazon, and I would like to work with you on it." So she hired me to adapt it, and she said, "I want first class all the way." So we got Will Conrad as the artist. We got Candace Hahn on the coloring, and it ended up being an absolutely beautiful graphic novel. And she did it as a large slipcase absolute edition, and we did it as a hardcover. And and she kickstarted this, and it's a good looking book. And so she has this available for like uh, late pledge orders on Kickstarter, and it's well worth checking out. But this is the sort of stuff that's being produced that's not currently in the comic shops. It's not even in the bookstores, but raised money on the crowdfunding for it.
Yeah, well, we're gonna get to that too. We're gonna get to that too, because obviously crowdfunding is complicated now in certain ways where there's a lot of it. It goes up, it goes down. And I mean, look, I'm kind of torn on it a little bit because I've been burned on a lot of projects, but I've
How
also,
so? What do you mean? You paid for it and they didn't come out?
yeah, they just didn't deliver and the people ghost. And I mean, some of the projects are like $20, but some of the projects are like
Yeah.
200. And I would say it's a good 15. I backed like 170 and it's a good 15. So it's not a small number.
Oh
But
wow.
I've got an awesome project out of Kickstarter too. I mean, Justin Hampton, who does music posters, had a book that came out on Kickstarter, and it's like 40 years of rock and roll history through posters. That book couldn't be done traditionally. So, like, it's a toss up, is my point.
Yeah. Yeah, I think where it comes in, you've got the people who are going to deliver, and you got the shysters. But you have that in every business because comics is a Hollywood in miniature. It's a smaller pond, but you've got your scumbags and you've got your
The ones that sting the most is when you have the people who typically do deliver, and then they have one last hurrah. And I had one of those. So the person delivered like six of them, and then on the seventh one, they screwed all their fans. Or the other thing that happens is that people are late, and they're not late by a month, but they're late by like 2-3 years. That's
uh,
also that's
yeah.
frustrating on a different level because it's like I want to read your story. You're
Yeah.
depriving me of joy.
Well,
It's
well,
terrible.
I actually know one of the guys who did a number of Kickstarters, and his two most recent ones he hasn't fulfilled. And I know he's not been public about it, but he's been struggling on a health related level and a financial level. So he's actually come to me and said, "Is there a way that you could help me make this happen?" And I'm still trying to figure out if there's a way I can do that because I'd like to see him get his project out there. But
And
uh,
I'm sympathetic in which that this year I don't think it's a secret, but this year has legitly destroyed everybody, and everybody is right now economically in
oh yeah,
complications. Between I haven't been public about it, but I was laid off from my job in June, so I'm the first person before I start shooting and yelling and screaming. I say, you know what? I get that this year has been a down year for everybody. I don't really care if your business is successful or not. Everybody is feeling it right now.
oh
For, for,
sure. you
for
know,
a million reasons.
yeah,
And I'm not a
well,
politics show, so we're not going to get into the politics of it. But the idea is everybody can understand that, okay, maybe his money's a little bit tighter and you got to figure it out. And so your project might be delayed by 6 months. But 2 years ago, that wasn't the case. But,
I completely understand that. Um,
but
I've managed to do was it 22 or 23 Kickstarters, and I've filled 21 of them, and or I think we're on the 21st one, and I just fixed a problem on one of them that is running late, and the other one I'm ahead of schedule, so it'll balance out. Yeah,
I have no doubt. I have no doubt. Anybody who's in business understands that things happen. And I have clients who wait for rare cards. And sometimes those cards take 6 months to be made and developed. They put a base in a card. Like from baseball. So those things take 6 months. So my eBay buyers, they understand it's going to take a while. And even though I'm supposed to fulfill in 40 days or ship it out to them, they know that nobody has them. And they know that if they want to cancel the order, they can cancel it, but it's going to cost them another $100 when it comes out. So everybody waits because everybody
yeah,
understands that. And these are repeat clients. And they immediately, when they get it, they leave me positive reviews, even though they know that I didn't fulfill on time. But they also know it's not my fault and they know the rules and it's up front and clear, right? So I understand if something is 6 months behind when there's clarity. It's when
sure,
there's not
sure.
clarity. It kills me. But again, I do want to talk about Kickstarter because that's the new frontier on
All right,
publishing
then let's just talk about a couple of those. Uh, you know about the comic book spinner rack?
I
Uh,
don't know. Is this a Paul Levitz thing?
no, this is a David Campeti thing, but Paul Levitz ordered one of these.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah, yeah. I mean, I
yeah.
interviewed Paul Levitz. He was a
Okay.
professor of mine.
So here,
That's why I brought it up. I saw the picture of it. I
all
thought it
right.
was great.
Yeah, let me do this. Let's see if I can get this to. Crap. I was going to share the screen here, but that'll work. That'll work. Okay. This was sent to me from China. We did the comic book spinner rack Kickstarter, and they sent me the rack that I created what I wanted. I wanted a spinner rack that could be made portable. I couldn't get it to fold down, but I got one figured out that we could do where you can take it apart in like 5 minutes, and you can put it in a little carrier that you can use as a backpack or pull it along on wheels, or if you just want to set it up, you order it without the carrier. But I wanted that classic 40 pocket, hey kids, comics spinner rack, but I wanted it to be more affordable than you could find anywhere else. I went looking on eBay. If you wanted an old rack, they were like $1,200. If you wanted it, intact with the thingy on top, some one place wanted $1,500. I went looking um, uh, for them online, and one company was selling a rack by R Wireworks, and they wanted almost $800. Turns out you can buy it for cheaper than that on R Wireworks. God bless them. And I know you can get it through Diamond, but sometimes they list it as unavailable even when they have them. I don't know. So I figured out a way to do this. Nobody else was doing one that you could basically fold down into a pack. And so I made one. Hold on. Standard 40 pocket rack. Um, exactly what many of us grew up with seeing um, in grocery stores or in um, drugstores or whatever. And I wanted to make that available. And I created 4 different toppers for it. Hey Kids Comics, World's Greatest Comics, and two others, and made it available in white and made it in black. If publishers wanted to get it, they could order packs of 10 in any color they want, and we could even customize the toppers for stores with the store name or name of a project or whatever they wanted. So it was a wonderful project. And then the manufacturer, after I approved the specs and after I approved the prototype rack, they sent out the rack that didn't match the specs of the prototype. And it starts arriving in people's hands. We had shipped 40 of these things out. Not everybody that ordered, but like the first wave. And I started getting complaints. The racks were bent. They put it together, and once you put books in the rack, it scraped the bottom. You put them in the top, and the books hit against the toppers. It's like, that's not right. And I'm looking, and there's 2 inches clearance, and there's an inch clearance on the bottom, and it's like, that shouldn't be the problem. And then people started sending me photos. It's like, they didn't do it to my specs. So it took a bunch of arguing and raining holy hell on the manufacturer, but I got the manufacturer to agree to redo them all from scratch. So and I agreed to pay for the shipping myself. So it's many thousands of dollars to reship these because I got tariffs now to deal with. But that was the only correct way to do business. I wasn't going to do temporary solutions and send, a replacement part here, a new spacer there. That made no sense to me. Do it right, redo all the racks, resend out racks from scratch. The racks that you already have, I don't care if you fix them, if you throw it away, if give it to a neighbor, it doesn't matter. Yeah.
So let me ask this, because I think you're touching upon something. Is that there a lot of people I deal with on Kickstarter, they do maybe $3,000-4,000, at most. So when they have a problem, it's just that they're not even breaking even, and they're just breaking in, a bunch of these people.
Yeah.
So for them, this is part of the problem, is that they're already 2, 3, 4 grand in the hole. And that it's not good, bad, or anything. It's just calling it what it is. And then obviously, you have a company behind you. So I'm not saying this is fun by any stretch of the imagination. I'm not trying to placate it either. And if it's coming off that way, that's not my intention. But the difference is that you have infrastructure, and you're not entering this game at level 1, even though you still have to fix the problem. This is where I think your mentality, because I don't think anybody doesn't have the mentality you just threw out there. I just think people don't have the economics or the maneuverability. In my business, I have the ability to maneuver around problems. Like, I'm having a debate internally tomorrow if I'm going to drop $1,700 on something, and I can do it, and I have the money to cover it from other things and other elements. And I think I'm going to make my money back in like 2 hours. But this is not what we're talking about today. My business is not on the docket. But that's what I think is so interesting too, is that, you have the ability to fix that problem, and you have the ability to do the right thing. And I think that if all of a sudden you have a big infrastructure behind you, not every company does it. I've been involved where companies have raised 200,000 and they didn't want to fix a book that was damaged to me, that was clearly damaged. But then I've had companies say, yeah, absolutely, we're just going to send you a new one. We're really sorry about this. I mean, I'll mention the name, Greg Horn.
Yeah.
He forgot to pack a book in my order. So what did they do? They sent me 2 other books too, and they were extremely apologetic.
And see, I get that. If we've sent something and it's arrived damaged, of course we replace it immediately. If we've made an error, sometimes we'll send out a second package and toss in a little extra for somebody too. And that's just part of what you do. It's good business, but it's also good conscience. I'm the type of person that if I screwed up something, even inadvertently, it bugs me. It keeps me up nights. So this was, I thought, a big problem that didn't require a bunch of small solutions. It required fixing it entirely. And as we speak, they're shipping out that first wave. And so, since the racks are made correctly this time, I've gone ahead and on the platform fundmycomic.com, I have
So
I today put up the spinner racks. So if people would like to get one, they can go to fundmycomic.com and type in spinner racks, and they'll find it.
that's Luke Stone's company, right? I
Yes.
think so yeah, I've interviewed Luke like 3 or 4 times.
Okay. Then this was my first time dealing with him. I'm curious to see how this crowdfunder will go. I have had much better luck on Kickstarter than on Indiegogo. So I've used Kickstarter for a lot of things as a result. I hope this one works with Fund My Comic because uh, I like the interface and it was pretty good to work with. So I I have good hopes. Let's see how that works out. I also have a second Kickstarter up. Well, my wife does. Um,
Yeah, I want to talk about that. We're going to talk about that. So yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah. Okay.
I think
Let's see what we got here. Let me go to put up the slides here again. Let's see what we have.
is it this one you need?
Yeah, yeah, okay. So that's Spinner Rack that's up now on I'm sorry, on Fund My Comic. I did this one. A lot of people remember that in the 80s and 90s, I did a lot of girly comics. And that's all Dave does. And then I look at the books I published at Innovation, and that was what, 5%? Why do you remember all the girly comics when it's a small percentage? But I write kids' books too. I did the Goddess Girls and the Heroes in Training and a bunch of other stuff. And so Thunder Stars, Kids Adventure. We
I,
did that.
I don't judge. I do everything. I do everything
Yeah. I,
X-rated all the way to
yeah. Yeah.
PC. So I get
Well,
it.
yeah, same here. So Thunder Stars, great kids graphic novel. Absolutely love doing it. Jade Warriors, we did that as a Kickstarter, and people can still order this.
Is that Joe Bennett?
This is Mike Diodato.
Ah,
And this was something that Diodato and writer Mike Buckley and I did at Image Comics for a few issues, but the story never got completed. And so we were able to go back, finish the story, and then find every piece of artwork for Jade Warriors that Diodato ever did, and put together this massive uh, fancy schmancy, absolute edition. There we go.
just
Love doing this book.
that looks
Yeah,
awesome.
yeah,
That looks like a bookshelf book, right?
yeah. And some lovely artwork. And so we had a grand time putting this thing together.
Yeah.
And my God, it took me literally years to assemble this because the files uh, were so difficult to locate, and we recolored the entire book. Did some rewriting, did some redrawing, tried to make it terrific. So that came out. We did that in the absolute format. We did a hardcover and we did a soft cover. It was 3 separate Kickstarters. And coming up next, if the one on Fund My Comic is successful, so that I can fund, because technically I'm losing money on the spinner rack because of all the refulfillment that I have to do, because the shipping will be so much. But if I can get it into the black that proves it was worthwhile doing, then for next year I will do a tabletop spinner rack, which is uh, three pockets down, so it's 12 pockets all the way around, again in white or black, and you can put it right on your table at at Comic Con. Display a dozen of your comics, and they 4x6 toppers are so easy to customize. And when I was showing at New York Comic Con um, this to a bunch of well, showing the large one to a bunch of folks who were displaying there, they said, "No, this is what we need." They want the 12 pocket rack. Like, okay, then that'll be next.
See, this
So,
is this is interesting because this I think falls more into my thought process, to be
mhm,
honest, where this is almost more of a business tool, especially the table one, because if you're at a convention, I don't see this necessarily at a comic shop, right? I
right.
see it more at a convention because you need a way how to cleverly display your books. And this could help people sell their comics. And well, you need a competitive edge or you need something that somebody could spin around and look at everything you have, especially when you have multiple variants and other things. And then, you could have your display copy out and then you could pull out the nice pristine copy that you
Yeah,
have in a long box underneath. This way, the person doesn't have to get the one that everybody kind of touches and looks at, but they can get the nice clean copy.
of course, of course. And the footprint's 11 inches, so if you get an 8-foot table, you can put one on either side. You're displaying 24 comics that way, and it's easy enough. That this my first design on here had the the the, the topper on all four sides. I think the final one will just have one, so you can drop in a couple of 4x6 um, cards and customize them with your name, your price, whatever it is you want to do. And I think that will be very helpful for people. Like,
Nah, I
yeah,
like it. I think
yeah,
I think it's I think it's smart. I think it's smart. I think it can help a lot of people. And obviously, this is like my thing that I enjoy, in which I enjoy the business side of everything.
yeah.
I'm one of those kids. So any product that helps businesses, I thoroughly enjoy. And I understand it more than others, and I find it fascinating because I know that this could help people sell books. And then obviously there's some other stuff that I want to mention. You've done some animation work, which is crazy, which is
Sure.
this right here.
Yeah,
Uh,
let's show this.
hopefully everybody can see it.
In and out in 56 seconds, and that can show everybody what we can do.
Yeah, so obviously you got the whole animation thing going on now too, which is
Yeah.
opens up everything. Opens up
um, I I have had for many years a an office in the Philippines, representing a lot of artists from there. And I started working. We were doing some animation design and so forth, and I had partnered up with a man named Jesse Lasseton, who has won many international awards as he's basically a John Williams for the Asian market, and he had gotten into a side business of doing animation for commercials. And he was showing me what he could do, and I said, "You could animate a whole feature this way." And it was all 2D at the time, and just very little CG animation. And we got to talking. It's like, well, why don't we do an animated movie? So between the two of us, we put in money, we raised some money, and we came up with a movie, released as Dio in the Philippines, where it won the Metro Manila Film Festival Award, and changed it to Nico Journey to Magica, where we did an English language version, which premiered here at Tribeca Film Festival. And
And
then,
it's currently available on Hulu.
yes, yes, it was on Hulu for quite a while. And um, so that put our money where our mouth is, proved we could do it. And then we ended up doing bits and pieces of some of the big movies. So there's a little bit of our work in, Rio and Horton Hears a Who and Ice Age stuff and just all that. And right now there's a pilot called Christmas with Grubs that is on YouTube that has had millions of views already that we did for Keen Spot, sort of an adaptation of their popular Grubs comic book. And we're haggling out a couple of other deals now, and it's something that I really enjoy doing. I've gotten to do voices on some of the cartoons, so that was the last check off on the list. Yeah.
So what is this like? Because you're not staying still. I mean, you've been around since 1993 as Glasshouse Graphics, and you're not staying still from a comic perspective, from an animation perspective, from just an art one-stop shopping. I mean, you're not staying still. That's what's so fascinating, right?
Well,
It, it's it, it,
it's. I don't want to be. eh, You talk to a lot of people today, they don't even know what Kodak is, as a camera company. Kodak fought like hell not to do digital cameras. Well, congratulations, everybody else did. So, what happened to your camera business? So, as I see things growing and changing, well, I can't do things exactly the way I did in 1995, let's say. It's 30 years later. I don't want to have dust or moss on me because I've stayed in the same place. So if the market is changing to where you need to get work from non-traditional comic sources, or you need to, well, you're working with artists anyway, why not go into animation? So that's what you do. Well, so much money is being made for some people in crowdfunding comics. Well, we need to chase that as well. Not only for Glasshouse's own projects, but for some of our artists. So it's continuing to grow and change, and that adaptability has got to be a standard part, I think, of anybody's business.
I don't disagree. In which that would happen to me is that I was just straight audio for the first 10 years of this show. I was straight audio,
Ah,
and then what happened is that COVID hit, and then I said, screw it. I'm gonna go and do video work. And then I jumped in, and let's just say that the interviews, the first 10 on video, were not great. Per se. It had nothing to do with the interview stuff, but then you adapt. And then I figured out about republishing interviews, when to republish. I learned a lot about YouTube and then when to post things. And then, I've adapted to YouTube community, and that brought me like 150 new subscribers and continuously brings me subscribers. And like I'm just continuously figuring out even just Facebook and how their algorithms are changing and Instagram's
yeah,
algorithms are changing. And I try new ideas, and sometimes those ideas fail. But the way I view it is that I'm going to throw a lot of darts at a dartboard, and because what's going to happen is that you're going to statistically, if you throw 100 darts at a dartboard, you're going to hit a bullseye at some point. You're going to hit it, and you're going to know why you hit it, and then that's going to give you direction on where you go, and then you got to maneuver again. And that's how I see it. I'm not saying you should recklessly throw darts in a bar, preferably when you're drinking. That's not what I'm encouraging. I want to make that crystal clear. If you're going to throw darts, sober up, please, because I do not want to be the victim of a dart attack. Do not take it from me. This is not. I will not deny or confirm if it's a true story. Yeah, just throwing it out there.
yeah.
I'm going to take the fifth here. on that story. But I think you have to adapt. I mean,
Well, and some of this is the whole crowdfunding thing is fascinating to me, um, because you know, I had a fellow came to me saying, "I want to publish comics. I want to do not the floppies. I want to do graphic novels." He said, "I want to not crowdfund it so much as sell it on my own website." And I said, "Well, you've got to have the audience for that." And he laughed. He said, "I have a big audience. I'm a podcaster and I know a lot of influencers, and we can send a lot of eyeballs to my website." And the man was Eric July. He asked me how to produce comics. I told him. He hired my company to do his books. He launched ISOM, ISOM, ISOM #1 with Cliff Richard's drawing, and the pre-orders were $3.7 million, um, which makes it what, the most successful comic book of the decade. X-Men #1 when it came out all those years ago, and was 5 million copies or whatever. That wasn't anywhere near what this was, because this is a $20 or $30 product. So in terms of dollars, he did fantastic. And then he went on to do Yara and Alpha Core and all so many others that he's been doing through his own sources, and they've all been doing well.
I have no problem stating what Eric July ran. What is called a funnel, and that's what Kickstarter is. And I mean, for those, I like funnel Linux. So ClickFunnels, and he just did it brilliantly, undeniably. So he did what Kickstarter does. He just did it on his own, and he kept the majority of the money, and he kept those fees in the majority of it. And I mean, I read ISOM, and I think I've read Yara. I haven't read the others, just didn't get around to it. I really enjoyed ISOM. I really enjoyed that book. I thought that was the best one out of the bunch, to be quite honest. In my opinion, but I think what he has done is brilliant.
Yeah.
And I think it
and it,
challenges.
and he has a good eye for artists, because
He has a good eye for writers too.
yeah.
I mean,
I hired Cliff Richards, hired Joe Bennett, Will Conrad, and several of our others.
and then on the artist side, on the writer side, I mean, Chuck Dixon writes for him.
Yeah,
Chuck Dixon is a great writer. And then a few others, obviously from the DC bullpen who really ran DC in the '90s and were writing right for him. So clearly it's good talent, because I don't know how you feel about this, but art is one thing, but if you have good writing and good art, you need both. You really do need both,
yeah.
because I don't think good art alone can carry something. Because if you
No,
don't,
yeah, good art with bad writing is still a bad story, and there's only so far great art can take a project, and it might uh, somebody doing great art and a bad story might get somebody to buy it once. Will they buy the next one? Maybe not. So
it's the
I
same thing about cover art.
yeah, obviously I prefer both.
Yeah, no. One of my favorite books is Hungry Ghosts by Anthony Bourdain,
Mm.
and I've got his co-writer. I loved Hungry Ghosts. I thought it was brilliant, and the art is good, but it's the story, where that story, and it's an anthology, and they all connect, and it's great. So the art is excellent. It's not phenomenal art. It's not like the greatest art in the world, but that story, the reason why the book is great is because the story is so good, and the story really pushes it, and the art really helps. But if the art was bad and the story was
Yeah,
great, it'd be an average book. But
yeah,
it's a excellent book, because you have excellent art, but you have that story behind it that's wonderful. And so, I mean, that's how I feel about that. But that's crazy. But no, I have no problem with Eric July. I mean, good for Eric July. That's how I
Oh
feel.
yeah, I hope he continues to do well. Um, Obviously, I appreciate the work and him trying to do good books is a wonderful, wonderful thing. Um, so, what else you want to talk about? Or
I figured there's two more things I want to talk about.
sure.
Obviously, you do something outside of comics, but related to comics, where you have your Academy of Comic Book Arts, and where you do a lot of seminars and a lot of teaching, and that really does help to shape curriculum in certain areas, and I think it's influenced other things as well. And so, what is that like? Because I think that obviously, it's a good thing when we have veterans influencing and teaching and providing guidance to the next generation.
Well,
Um,
I have done these seminars throughout the U.S., not only like smaller things at conventions, anywhere from 1 to 4 hours, where I'd put them on. I've done panels and things like that to try to teach this stuff. But there have been art schools in the U.S. who have brought me in to do full day or multiple day things, and I've done uh, seminars in Brazil and in the Philippines that have been multiple day events. I think the first one I did in Brazil was 3 days long. In fact, I did a couple of them that were 3 days long there, and did multiples that were 3 days in the Philippines. And you charge nothing or next to nothing for them because the idea isn't to make money, it's to teach people so that they can grow and be in a position to earn a living. Uh, in fact, that's how I met my wife. Uh, the first ever creating comics seminar I did in the Philippines. There were 84 artists came to it. Not only did we open up the seminar for free, it was free lunch both days or all 3 days. I forget which. And she was one of the 84 artists and couldn't keep my eyes off her. And so talking to her during the breaks and well, I guess it worked out because coming up in May, it'll be 25th anniversary.
so why don't you tell everybody who your wife is, because she's
Uh,
got some stuff that comic wise that she's done.
yeah,
Um,
my wife goes by the name of Jinky Coronado, aka Bonsai Girl, and for the past 20 some years on and off, she's done the Bonsai Girl comic. She's done covers for Xenoscope and Archie and Keen Spot and some others. She did a series of Avalon High graphic novels for one of those book publishers. So she's racked up quite a few pages of comic art over the past 20 something years. Um, uh, as a side note, back when she was getting started and promoting Bonsai Girl, um, she was a bikini and lingerie model in FHM magazine and on some calendars. And she was in her Bonsai Girl schoolgirl uniform for the covers of the first run of Bonsai Girl. So, and did conventions that way. So people got lots of photos with her. And it's she's had an interesting career in comics.
So yeah, I figured, because that's how I discovered you, is that I'm a big Zenoscope fan. I've been for a long time, and side note, because I like to promote them. I know Ralph and I know Joe pretty decently, and I know Dave Franchini, who's been there for a while, who just left.
Mhm.
Weird Brain, but they got a Black Friday sale going on, and there's some good stuff going on, like 60% off of a lot of their stuff. So if
Neat.
you're a fan and you're watching this and you're seeing it, and I'm a trading card guy. Trading cards are 60% off certain packs tomorrow, so we know where my paycheck is going. Tomorrow. It's going to be an expensive day tomorrow, but not the point. Um, if anybody is paying attention to Tops, you know exactly what I'm buying tomorrow at 12 o'clock. But I digress there. But obviously, I'm a big fan of them. So that's how I discovered you. Is that I saw her work and I have some of her covers. And then I look up people, I look up where they're from, I follow the trail, and then so on and so forth. I'm just fearless and I ask for interviews because the worst thing that's going to happen to me is a no. And then here we are. So that's how we got here, everybody.
Well,
Oh,
it's funny that I seem, even despite all the comics I've written over the years, I seem to be primarily a behind the scenes kind of guy because I'm getting the work for the artist or solving editorial problems. Um, People don't realize that I've been, called into to major meetings at the big companies and been involved in a couple of big events. Uh, uh, so, I enjoy the behind the scenes type of stuff, but it's also nice to talk about it every once in a while.
no, I love every aspect of this. I do. I love every aspect. I love the upfront stuff. I love the behind the scenes stuff. And again, I love everything about comics because I love the business side of it, and I also love the creation side of it. But the way I'm programmed is that I am a CFO type of guy. Um,
Mhm.
I am not a good creative writer, at all. Me writing a comic would be like a struggle. It would take me like 6 months to write like an issue. It'd be terrible. It'd be terrible. This is why we're not doing it. But no, no,
Well,
no.
that's why when you hire somebody like me to be an editor to guide you through it all.
I quit.
Anything's possible.
I'm quitting while I'm ahead, and I'm much happier because I will read it, I will buy books, I will enjoy books, I will become a CFO at a comic company if I wanted to be part of the business, and I will be the guy who's making sure that every T is crossed and every I is dotted and the financials are in order. But I'm not the creator, and I don't want
Well,
that job
well,
because
that sounds like a good place to be.
it
Yeah.
sounds like a way more fun place for me. I'm the kid who enjoys reading like stock reports. Like to me, that's like a guilty pleasure. Like if you want to punish me, like make me become a creative writer.
Yeah, there's something to be said for what happens when you're involved so much in the nitty gritty of this stuff. Um, I reached a point a bunch of years ago where I can no longer read a comic book for fun. I get a comic book and immediately I'm going to, why is the word balloon there? That tail is too thin. Oh, why is there a typo on this page? Did it not have an editor? And then I'm flipping back and then, oh, why did he do this? Okay, why is the eye flow on this page not working?
You're
I analyze it and ruin it for myself.
so I will. I've said this before on interviews. Is that when I interview voice actors, I said I don't want your job. I don't want to be a voice actor. It would ruin. I'm a big anime guy. It's like my guilty pleasure. It calms me down when I'm watching anime. And if I became a voice actor, it would ruin that for me, and it would take away a gift. That then it would take away an escape. So I
Yeah.
cannot be a voice actor. It has nothing to do tabling even the technicalities of it. The technicalities don't matter if you realize that if you become something, it's going to ruin it. Like I can interview wrestlers and enjoy wrestling, and I can do color commentary at a wrestling show and not ruin wrestling. That doesn't ruin wrestling for me. But me being a voice actor, it would ruin anime for me indefinitely. Because
I I get that completely.
so I understand your position completely and I get it. And that's the thing. I think if I actually wrote a comic, I don't think it would ruin comics for me at this point. But me voice acting, it would destroy me on that front. I would have to legitimately not watch anime because I'd be thinking about it and I'd be like, why did they do that? Why did it say this diatone? It would defeat the purpose of trying to relax.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
I
yeah,
digress. It's not about
yeah,
me.
yeah.
But
But
obviously, speaking, what were we saying?
yeah, I think I take it back. There is one comic that I can read for enjoyment. Sunstone, if you know what that one is.
I
Uh,
know what Sunstone is.
yeah,
Stepanek or Stephen?
Yeah, I don't know. Didn't say his name because I don't know how to pronounce it and would rather not
Yeah,
butcher it.
yeah, 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 yeah.
And
It's Top Cow. They just I think
yeah,
they just did
I,
a Kickstarter, right?
yeah,
I-
yeah. He's got another project up, and I guess I bought the book there. But love that stuff, and that is so far different from what we do on a day-to-day basis. That okay, I can enjoy this because it's brilliantly done. A lot of nice body language, expression, all that. So it's very well done. So read it, I enjoy it, and then I'm back to the stuff that we do here.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Yeah. Again, I know Sunstone, so it's been around forever. But I digress. But obviously, we've been speaking for a while. And I do want to give you a chance to promote yourself. Obviously, promote what you do, promote products you got coming out there, promote Glass House Graphics. Anything else you want to promote? Where can people find you, bother
Yeah.
you, look for work, all
Okay.
that stuff?
All right. So let's start with the basics. You can reach me David at glasshousegraphics.com. I have two websites. There's glasshousegraphics.com, obviously, for all the print related stuff, and ghsanimation.com for all of our animation work. And I think you'll find them both quite interesting. And let's see, what else? What else? I am on Facebook. I'm very easy to find. As far as I know, I'm the only David Campeti in the world. So you look me up online, and there's thousands and thousands of things about me there. Um, Oh, let's see. Okay, Kickstarters, as we talked about, we have two crowdfunders going right now. So if you look up Bonsai Girl Reborn #1, you will see my wife launched that one about a week ago, and she's at about $12,000 right now. So it's on its way to what it should be. And then if you go to fundmycomic.com, you can order the classic comic book spinner rack in black or in white, with or without a portable carrier if you want to take it to events or have it be able to store it somewhere. Um, and I think folks will like the comic rack not only for the kish factor or or whatever, but uh, I know some folks who, oh my God, I have it for my den. This is great. I know one guy that's got a comic room. And he said, "Oh, I bought two comic racks. I got a black one over here and a white one over here," and he was so happy. Um, so I I hope people will enjoy both of those projects. We have I've got my next 6 Kickstarters planned out already. We will eventually be doing. I showed the hardcover for Thunderstars. We did a soft cover with a dust jacket because I wanted to tailor it for specific market. We're doing the hardcover coming up. We did a book called Legends of the Stargrazers, where I took one of my old innovation projects, um, recolored the entire thing, and released that in hardcover. We'll do a soft cover of that coming up. Um, and then we have a bizarre project called Hot Wings that is going to be coming up, and it is angels as superheroes fighting a female demon, and it's in some ways the nastiest thing, and most mean spirited thing I've ever done. But there's a it is still in its bizarre way a lot of fun. Dave Santana did gorgeous artwork on this thing. And so sometime in the next month or two, I'll launch it. The book's entirely done. We're just crafting the details for the Kickstarter now. And it's going to have some wonderful variants uh, by some top people that I think people will really enjoy collecting. Um, so Yeah, well, the next year of Kickstarter is already planned and some pretty cool stuff.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And I'm glad to hear it. I'm glad to hear it. Obviously, and I'm going to keep saying it, is that you have to support products you want to see get made, and support can mean a lot of things. Preferably buying it or backing it on Kickstarter, or fund my indie, or fund my comic. Those places, when they
Mhm.
come out there, if people have them in their store, that's a place to get it. If they're at conventions, that's a place to get it. If they're on Amazon, or somebody, a comic shop orders it, that's a way how to support it too, directly, indirectly. Also, following people sharing out projects really does help. Supporting things like that. I don't know how you feel about it, but people sometimes send me a message through email, on Twitter, say, "Hey, I really love this interview. I just heard this interview with so and so." That really helps, because sometimes, everybody has a bad day, and when you get one of those messages, it definitely helps. When people do
Oh
that,
yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah.
it might not seem like a big deal. It might seem a little corny, might seem a little soft, for lack of a better word here, but it does help. It does help a lot.
Oh
Um,
yeah, oh yeah. It's always nice to hear from people. Um, Folks may also want to check out. I do a podcast as well. It doesn't have as many followers as yours. I'm just getting started, uh, and it is called Throwing Stones. Glass House, Throwing Stones, of course.
that's
Um,
great. That's great. I love that. That's
yeah,
brilliant.
and it is a three-part. Most of them are three-part podcasts. The first one, I'll bring in a guest, just like you've done here, and we've had publishers, writers, artists that I don't represent, as well as Mike Diodato, Joe Bennett, Will Conrad, Cliff Richards, all those guys. Um, we also have a section where I review portfolios. People will send me portfolios to review, and since I haven't done a lot of seminar stuff lately because I've been uh, cutting way down on conventions and all that recently, it's a chance for people to learn. Portfolio review is helpful for artists because they can learn from other people's mistakes so they don't make the same ones. And I try to be as helpful as I can doing that. Then the third part, we'll talk about Kickstarter's upcoming projects and things like that. So Throwing Stones is the name. There are, I don't know, 16 of them or 18 of them up already on YouTube. I've got it on hiatus for the holidays because I don't seem to ever be here on Saturdays when we do the podcast, and I don't want to record them all in advance. I because it's a whole different thing. I like to have people seeing it at a certain time so that I can read the comments live and make it more interactive. So once I get through the holidays, I'll probably restart it in January, and uh, so this is kind of like the podcast I do in the middle. This will fill people in for now. Uh, so I appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah, yeah. Anytime, anytime. I'm just lucky that I am fearless, and that the worst thing that could happen to me in my life is somebody says no. So I go for it, right? It's like going on it for 4th and 1 in football. Sometimes it works. But it says it's my podcast. I'm going to promote myself. Obviously, I am Pop Anime Comics on Twitter/X, Pop Anime Comics on Instagram, Pop Anime Comics on the Facebook, Pop Anime Comics on YouTube. It means a lot when you subscribe to me. I cannot promise you will get smarter by watching me. I can assure you, though, that you will be entertained. 1,400 interviews, countless videos on everything and anything. You name it, I've interviewed it. You name it, I've interviewed it. And if you don't think I've interviewed it, watch it again, because I have. Um, Everything. Now, I would not listen to my podcast around a 5-year-old. That's all I'm going to say. And you can interpret that however everybody wants to interpret that. But also I'm on TikTok, Pop Anime Comics. And then I do run a little eBay business. And this is it right here. Look for comics and collectibles. Come shop with us on eBay at Pop Anime Comics Collectibles. And I carry stuff like this in my store. A little John Cena for you. I carry cards like this in my store. I do carry expensive cards like this in my store. And then every once in a while, I do carry some other stuff like sketch cards in my store. And then I carry some interesting comics like this in my store and this in my store. So you name it, I carry it. I got a lot of cool stuff coming up for Black Friday. So if you're looking for some cheap cards, some expensive comics, some expensive cards, or anything and everything in between, I got you covered. And I will remind everybody that Saturday is Small Business Saturday. So please go support small businesses. And I am a small business. So, it's not a requirement, but if you're looking for comics, cards, collectibles, I got you covered. And if I don't have it in my store, ask me because I might have it. And if I have it, I'll list it. If I don't have it, I'll tell you if it exists. If it doesn't exist, well, I don't know what to tell you because that happens. And if it does exist and I don't have it, I got a lot of friends and I'm more than happy to direct you to the right places so you can get the stuff you want because, well, I believe that that's how things should be done. And I took that from Miracle on 34th Street. So, having said all that, I am notorious for stealing good ideas from people. So, you're welcome, everybody, and adopting them and utilizing them to in good, productive ways here. So, having said all that, obviously, I want to give you the final word.
I appreciate being on this. I hope that folks who want to break into comics will not only try things like Kickstarter, but if they're wanting to learn, they're welcome to submit their portfolios to me, David at glasshousegraphics.com, and I'll either do them by email or do them on my podcast. And so look for my books, be part of our crowdfunders, and have a great holiday, everybody.
And I don't think I consider that any better myself, everybody. And that is a wrap.